persons having anything to do before the Honorable William Sullivan, Justice of the Superior Court now sitting in Plymouth, within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now in session. Please be seated.
Good morning, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, before the court today, we have the continuation of the jury trial in the matter of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. Ms. Clancy is present. She is represented by Attorney Kevin Reddington. The Commonwealth is represented by Assistant District Attorney Shannon Buckingham and Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. So what I want to do is first I'm going to ask you those questions, make sure everybody was able to follow my instructions, and then I'm going to discuss a little bit about what we're going to do today in our schedule. So first off, the first question is, any member of the jury read, seen, or overheard anything from any source that would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror in this case? All right. Well, next question is there any other serious matter or concern bearing on your service as a juror in this case? Anybody needs to bring to my attention? All right. So again, thank you for following those instructions. And so what I want to do is just talk a little bit about the next part of the trial, which is the view. You hear people talk about it. Now, I already kind of blew my cover when I said I couldn't control the weather. I would have taken credit for the fact that it's a beautiful day today, but I already told you I couldn't control that. So, but a view. So let me explain kind of what a view is, give you this very brief instruction in regards to that. Members, the jury, you're about to visit and go by a number of places that you've heard testimony about during the trial. And the terminology we use for that, as I've said, is a view. Now, the purpose of the view is to help you better understand the evidence that you've heard and will hear during the trial, and to help you appreciate the location, the surroundings about these different areas. All right, now, the view that you're going to take is part of the case. The observations that you make while on the view may be used by you and considered by you in your deliberations in reaching a verdict. So you can consider what you're about to see during the course of the view. The places that we're going to go to in this case, we're going to drive to the CVS that was described. We're not going to get out, but we're going to see where that is. Then we're going to drive by that restaurant, 3V, I think it's called, in Plymouth. So we're going to drive there. Then we're going to go back to the home, which is at 47 Summer Street, and you'll have an opportunity to go inside the house. You'll go in there with the court officers, the lawyers, myself, and because we've got a large jury here, what we're probably going to do is break it up into maybe 3 groups of 6. All right, so we'll take 6 and we'll all go down. We'll look at different areas. The attorneys will point out certain things they may want you to take note of. But you can look at everything as far as just view it. When you're in there, you're not to do any independent research. You're not to kind of open up drawers or open up doors or anything like that. So the attorneys will give you an opportunity, and we'll give you an opportunity to just kind of look around and view that. And so after that, you're not to return to the scene. In other words, after you do this, you're not to go back if you have these unanswered questions or anything like that. You're not to go back. This is your chance to see these areas in this residence. All right. Like I said, you can consider what you're about to see as part of the evidence in the case. Now, during the trip to and back from these places, you're not to discuss the case or anything about it amongst yourselves or with anyone. When you're coming back, you're not to discuss on the bus, hey, we saw that, or did you see this, things like that. That's, as they say, that's verboten. All right, you can't talk about that on the way to and from. And so, as I indicated, you're going to be under the supervision of the court officers. I'd ask you to follow their instructions carefully. They're very experienced in doing these, and so they'll help you kind of go through this and set up, break up into those groups. And so, just so you know, the one group of 6 will go into the house, the others will stay on the bus. Okay, and when you're on the bus, you're not to discuss the case either. Geez, I can't wait to see this or that. None of that. All right. It's probably pretty obvious, but I just kind of have to kind of go through those instructions with you. And so what we're going to do now, I'm going to excuse you so you can kind of get yourselves together. We'll bring you back down on the bus. Myself, the attorneys will join you there, and then I think we're going to go first to the CVS and that restaurant first, and then second we'll go to that address in Duxbury. All right. Okay, thank you. Oh, geez, I got ahead of myself. I'm told we have to swear in the court officers, so I apologize.
Will the court officers please come forward and raise their right hand? Do each of you solemnly swear that you will take this jury upon the premises in question and then suffer them to view the same or any property, place, or thing bearing upon the issue in this trial, as they shall think necessary, that you will not permit the parties to enter into debate within the hearing of the jury, nor any person to speak to them, unless it be Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague or Assistant District Attorney Shannon Buckingham on part of the Commonwealth and Attorney Kevin Reddington on part of the defendant, and they only to point out such places and things that they deem expedient for the determination of the issues, and that you will keep this jury together until they shall return to the court unless the court shall otherwise order. So help you God. Thank you.
All right, so we can take them. Thank you.
All right, please.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, here's my microphone. Good morning, everybody. Of course, they started early today, so I just want to give you guys a brief. Oh, thank you, Amber. It's hard to find different clothes to wear for, live streaming every day. So thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, Council, so we'll be in
Morning,
recess at
Judy.
this time to resume. As soon as we come back from the view, we'll resume the trial. Okay, thank you.
What? All rise.
Okay, so I just wanted to.
Recess, please exit the courtroom.
I'll wait till they stop talking here. So I just wanted to go over a few things with you guys. Good morning, everybody. They started early today. I was actually rebooting my computer. Thanks for Amber. Thank you, Amber, for putting the stream up for me. So basically, and good morning. I really appreciate you guys all be. Oh, wow. Thank you about loving the hair. I did it really quickly. So yes, by the way, yesterday I did have a lovely day with the babies, and for people that may not know, my oldest daughter had twins, and they're just newborns, and so I hugged them extra long and hard and really thought about those poor innocent victims in this trial. So let's go to a little legal analysis this morning. And it's Friday. Is it Friday? I don't know. I think it's Friday. So anyway, what is the prosecution strategy? As you know, I'm a former prosecutor. And so far, the prosecution strategy centers on proving deliberate premeditation and intent to counter the defense's lack of criminal responsibility, which is the insanity claim here in Massachusetts. So how is the prosecution doing so far? Will today's jury view help jurors grasp this window of opportunity timeline to show that Lindsay Clancy knew exactly what she was doing at the time the crimes were committed? Again, for all of you just joining, welcome to the Margaret McLean Show. I'm a former prosecutor, trial lawyer, professor at BC for 17 years. Time flies, and I stopped doing that after COVID. But now I'm your courtroom translator here on the show, and I love it. I love what I'm doing. I love meeting people. That's one of my favorite things about this show, is meeting people from across the country, and believe it or not, from across the world. So it's really cool. And of course, I'm building the channel. So, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it, and spread the word. So let's take a look briefly at the prosecution's core strategy, which is, of course, establishing criminal intent during their case in chief. And how are they doing? So as we've seen, the Commonwealth relies on the use of exercise bands as the weapons. We saw photographs of those weapons yesterday. They also emphasized that the manual strangulation requires sustained physical effort over, I would say, several minutes for each victim. And they really drove that home, I thought, yesterday with some of the testimony from first responders. So they're countering, the prosecution is countering the narrative of a sudden involuntary psychotic snap that the defense wants you to believe happened. So far, the Commonwealth has been trying to create this calculated timeline through witness testimony. So day 1 and 2 focused heavily on Lindsay's actions immediately before the crimes. The prosecution showed the use of Apple Maps to calculate the travel time for her husband's errands to Patrick's errands to CVS and the 3V restaurant, trying to prove that she deliberately engineered a precise window of isolation in order to commit the acts. And then we have evidence that the Commonwealth is trying to show, I would say it would be clear mind evidence. And what do I mean by that? Well, they introduced her journal entries and recent search history. Instead of showing erratic behavior, right? The state argues these records show a woman highly focused on her medications and lifestyle. She was trying to get better, but the prosecution, again, I'm just giving you a prosecution's rundown. The prosecution is trying to show the jury that she was acting with clarity rather than under the influence of severe delusion, which may resonate with some of the jurors. So by calling Patrick Clancy as their first witness, the prosecution extracted a crucial admission. Despite her mental health struggles, he never believed she was a danger to the children. And on the day of the tragedy, she was having one of her best days ever, according to him. She was building a snowman with the kids. And this helps the state argue that her actions were an unpredictable act of M, not an inevitable result of her diagnosed postpartum mental illness. Of course, that's the prosecution's case. So yesterday's testimony from first responders was devastating. It was hard to watch. I think that the prosecution called all of those witnesses, which appeared repetitive to us as we watched, but the raw clinical descriptions of the children's injuries, along with the blood stains on the floor, the deep dark red marks detailed by firefighters and first responders, I think it viscerally, that's the word. It's the morning. Reinforced the sheer physical effort required to commit the acts. So jurors are going to be thinking about that. And the prosecution did a good job of driving that home yesterday. And also you could see the emotion, especially on that first police officer who responded to the scene. I mean, he was so clearly, visibly upset on the stand. It was difficult for him to testify about finding the children. So I think that resonated with jurors as well. And, the Commonwealth also successfully introduced testimony from, Officer Stephen Hall, I believe, characterizing Lindsay's self-inflicted neck and wrist cuts as superficial and not actively bleeding. Why did they do that? Because it supports their narrative that her 20-foot jump from the window was a secondary calculated reaction to realizing what she had done, rather than a synchronized plan driven by psychosis. That's the Commonwealth's theme here, and they're trying to drive that home. So what about the defense? They scored minor points. Remember, I think Kevin Reddington wanted to get this part over as quickly as he possibly could, because she's admitting to the acts, but she's not admitting to the mens rea or the mental state. She's saying that she was under such a severe state of psychosis that she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't have the mens rea to commit these acts. So he just, for the most part, didn't do very much cross-examination. But he did score some minor points on cross-examination yesterday by getting a paramedic to admit that they treated Lindsay for a suspected opioid overdose and administered Narcan. Now, defense attorney Kevin Reddington will use this to argue that Lindsay's erratic, combative state upon waking up proves profound mental impairment. But the prosecution will go the other way with that. So the jury view today, this I'd say this is a structural context that will make the first responders' testimony real, and the jury will be able to visualize the exact distance from the backyard where Lindsay fell to the base, or jumped from the window. And also, they'll be looking at the basement and the area where the children were found, and that will drive the emotion home for them, I'm sure. Of course, somebody else bought the house. It's a lawyer bought the house, actually. I would never buy that house, even no matter how discounted it was, because it's just, to me, it's such a horrible thing that occurred there and just so eerie. I'm surprised, but he must have gotten a great deal on it. So, and remember here I'll talk to you a little bit about the law under Massachusetts law, and then I'll get to the chat. Because the defense raised lack of criminal responsibility, and you can even raise that during cross-examination, the burden shifts entirely to the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lindsay was legally sane at the exact moment of the crimes. So let's turn to the chat. Of course, I've got to look. Oh, yes, I miss me and Kevin together too, Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it. Yes, I was thinking about Kevin yesterday. I've got to give him a call. So Kevin told me that he wanted to take a step back from true crime. I'm not sure I don't think he's covering this case, but I'll have to give him a call. We still talk about various cases, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. So thank you for reminding me. I'm going to give him a call today as I'm walking. So I'm in New York City, as you know, Michelle. I'm here for a month because I'm helping my daughter out. She just had 2 newborn twins. So of course, the biggest trial in my neck of the woods happened to come up, but I'm doing my best to live stream, and I've set up my little studio with books behind me and all of that. Yes, I do miss him very much. And let's see, what do we have on? I have to look. Okay. So Michelle, the Commonwealth is starting to convince me she wasn't in psychosis or insane. She knew to wait until Patrick left and look for those exercise bands. The knife hurt, so she knew she would have to stop. Okay, when she was attempting to get rid of her own self, unalive herself. See, I have to be careful what I say on YouTube. Well, that's interesting, Michelle, because remember, this is the Commonwealth's case in chief. And so many people do agree with you. I talk about this case off camera with people all the time, and I'm talking to my friends, even people who do understand a little bit about mental illness, and they can't get beyond some of the things that you're talking about. The evidence of premeditation, and taking each exercise band and doing what she did. It's just, and then if you notice strategically, the Commonwealth keeps showing the pictures of those exercise bands, and then those descriptions of the kids, and then their necks, and that's going to be something that jurors. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Amber. So Amber is wonderful. She works behind the scenes, and we work together. And she's obviously. Thank you so much for showing us these pictures. So can you believe I have someone behind the scenes that really helps me out? Love her. Big shout out to Amber. I appreciate you. But look at those photographs. And of course, the basement will not look like that today. Some people didn't get that. Some people I've talked to, they thought it would be set up just like that. No, somebody else moved in and I'm sure the first thing they did was redid the basement. So that's why Kevin Reddington was saying, it's not necessary to have a view in this case. But Judge Sullivan, I know for a fact he likes his views. So he agreed with the Commonwealth that they would have a view, and they're taking a bus. The police will escort them around to not only the home, but the ThreeV restaurant and, the CVS. So they'll be able to see that. Yeah. So back to Michelle. I'm going to put this back up. Yes. So remember, it's the Commonwealth's case in chief. We haven't heard from experts yet. So that's one of the reasons why they had the long questionnaire today, or I mean, for jury selection. And it took how many days? What was it? I can't remember now, 3 or 4 days to pick a jury. There's 18 of them. They have to be able to have an open mind to listen to the experts, to not just make up their minds during the Commonwealth's case in chief, right? And, opening statements are not evidence. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if jurors in their own minds are leaning the way that you might be, Michelle, because it's been a tough week, especially that 911 call they had to hear. They had to see the children's clothing. So that's the way all these cases really are. Hey, I was a prosecutor. So during my case in chief, I better hope that the jurors are leaning my way, because the defense hasn't put anything on yet. And Kevin Reddington is strategically not doing much cross-examination because, again, she admitted to committing the acts, but she's not admitting to the mens rea or the criminal mind. So we have to wait and see, but it certainly is a tragedy and people are so divided. It'll be interesting to hear from some of the medical care providers who actually treated her at the hospital, see what they have to say, see if she made any specific statements to them, and see how clear she was. So yeah, Judy, it is a battle, certainly a battle of the experts. And what happens if it's a hung jury? Do they retry her? Of course, that's up to District Attorney Tim Cruz whether to retry her. And remember, the Commonwealth is fighting for these justice for the 3 young victims. So I'm imagining they would try her again, unless there's an agreement, or maybe they'll plea bargain to involuntary manslaughter, something like that. But either way, she will be committed into a mental health facility for a very, very long time. The assessment is, it's by, the court. Even if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, she still goes to the secure mental health facility, like a Duxbury hospital in Massachusetts, where she has a team and the court is involved. And then the Commonwealth, the prosecution, will file a petition to keep her in there. And the overall yearly evaluation for Lindsay Clancy will be, does she pose a threat to herself, or does she pose a threat to others? And I think that the first prong, does she pose a threat to herself, would be the most significant one, because here she is bound to a wheelchair. So I can't imagine she would pose very much of a threat to other people at this point. However, would you want to live knowing that you did this to your children, and your Patrick is remarried and moved on, you're by yourself, you're paralyzed for the rest of your life? I think she poses a significant threat of harm to herself. And look, she already had according to, especially the defense, she already had she tried to end her own life. So yeah. And of course, Judy, I agree with you. It is certainly a battle of the experts here. And what happens if it's hung? Yeah. Okay. That I already answered that, Judy. What do you guys think in the chat? What do you think? I'd like to know your opinions so far. We heard from Michelle. What do you think so far of the Commonwealth's case? So the blood under the window against the shingles tells me she kind of slid down and didn't jump. But yes, looking forward to the doctors that treated her. You have a good point. And, it looks to me like possibly she tried to unalive herself, but it hurt. Jurors will think about that too. Think about how much it hurt the children when she did what she did to them individually. So will they hold that against her? You know, this woman is such a coward. She was able to physically hurt her own children. Yet when it came to offing herself, she, oh, wow, I can't stand the pain. And then she was possibly afraid to jump as well and end her own life. So what will jurors think about that? And it's amazing. Again, each juror brings in their own common sense, their own thoughts, their own life experiences into this. So you wonder what sometimes resonates with jurors. I served on a jury, believe it or not, as a lawyer. Several years ago, I remember it was prior to me covering the Whitey Bulger trial. So that would have been, Whitey Bulger was in 2013. So it was around, I don't know, 2012, I think, when I served on a federal jury in Boston. And it was quite a unique experience, especially to be on a jury. And by the way, I get called on jury duty all the time. So this year they screwed up because I served last year. I wasn't called to a trial, but I was there for a full day in Brockton, which again is in Plymouth County. So you're supposed to have a 3-year reprieve of when they don't send you a letter. What did they do? They sent me one less than a year later. And so I called, I said, I just served less than a year ago. And I said, I remember specifically, I forgot to save the paperwork. So I called, I said, well, I do remember it was during the Karen Reed trial. I was sitting there in Brockton and I was missing testimony. And so they were able to look it up and they said, oh, yes. I don't know why we accidentally sent you a letter. And I'm like, because you want me on your jury. So 3 years and I know I'll be called again, but I'll probably be called for a federal jury. So it's kind of interesting. Let's look at the chat again. Okay. What am I doing? All right. I got to pull up the chat. Reddington is good. I agree. He's very, very good. And I thought there was a question up here. What was the question? So Amber says, I could see someone leaning out the windows, face first, bleeding onto the shingles. Well, that's a good point. Then in the air, go feet overhead and end up on their back in the position that Pachter described her. Yes, but that's just a possibility. I could see it happening the other way as well. So yeah, so jurors are going to be, that's why I really like the comments in the chat, because I think jurors are going to be thinking the same thing. It's some of the very same observations. So sometimes through the chat, we can possibly predict what a jury may do with this. I mean, I think it's tough to predict this one, but in other trials, you can kind of predict, like the Walsh trial. I covered Brian Walsh, and that was sort of a slam dunk for the prosecution. I mean, if you guys followed that one, but this one is far from a slam dunk. There's so many gray areas. And I think that's why a lot of people are following it, even though the facts are horrendous and it's hard to watch. But I'm surprised at the number of people that are interested in following, because, we do need education about mental health here. Mandy, good morning. I appreciate you chiming in. Would Lindsay have to take the stand? No, she will not take the stand here. She has the right to remain silent, and there's no way that Kevin Reddington would put her on the stand, because I think the Commonwealth would eviscerate her in cross-examination. So she'll sit there. So I think what you probably meant was to describe what her psychosis was all about, to describe, you'd like to hear from her, explaining what the voices said. So I think all of that will come out through testimony. And remember, Patrick Clancy may be recalled to the stand because he's a witness for both the prosecution and the defense. I also think the auditory hallucinations, it may come out as through some of her doctors may testify, and also we'll hear from the experts who will get up there and testify that somebody who experiences severe psychosis, postpartum psychosis, and mania do hear voices. And I'd like to hear the whole part about waxing and waning, meaning you can come in and out of psychosis. So I think that's the crux of this case. Is it possible for her to seem completely lucid and rational throughout the day of these horrible events, and then commit the crimes, and then, moments later come out of the psychosis? So I think jurors are going to have a problem with that. So the experts will really have to explain using data and statistics and, whatever they may have to show that. Because many of us who have experienced mental illness, or a family member or a friend with mental illness, it seems that they're in psychosis for much longer than just a few minutes. So I think the jury will be grappling with those questions. And so I know she will not, there's no way she's going to take the stand in this case. Brian Welsh trial was an absolute slam dunk. The evidence was overwhelming. So that case happened literally, practically in my backyard. I remember when Anna Walsh went missing. So everybody was very interested in the case. My God, we had a missing woman. It was a no body case. But ultimately, Brian Walsh, her husband, was convicted on first degree, because I think the extensive Google searches that he made, like how to dismember a body and all that. So ultimately, I think that case, people watched it, but it wasn't as interesting because it was such a slam dunk for the prosecution. And he was going to testify, and he decided not to testify. So if you recall, his defense attorney made promises in the opening statements that he shouldn't have made, saying that his client was going to take the stand. In hindsight, I think Brian Welsh should have taken the stand to explain, I don't know, possibly what his theory was, because now looking back, he had nothing to lose. But of course, that's in hindsight. So her taking a call from Patrick in the middle of the crime tells me she knew what she was doing. Yes, absolutely, that's going to come into play. And also, I think the testimony from the manager at CVS, who described the phone call, right, this would have been right before. She seemed lucid and rational. She was able to respond to questions and answer questions. And also the hostess from the ThreeV restaurant who testified said the same thing. She seemed lucid and rational, and was able to place the order and respond to the questions, because the hostess said, "Do you want protein on your meal?" And she said no. So that certainly goes against the defense, and it goes in favor of the prosecution. So people are going to think that. That's why I like it. This chat is wonderful, because we can really bring up all of these issues here. And it's also the most emotional case I've ever watched. So it's crazy. So what I was pulling up the stream on my end here, and I didn't catch the very beginning. After the view, you guys can answer this for me, is testimony going to resume this afternoon? I thought that it wasn't. I thought they were having the view, which again, they have to go to 3 different places and walk around. So, and of course, everybody has to be silent. Nobody can say anything. So will there be any more testimony today? I didn't think so, but correct me if I'm wrong. That's why I love it. You guys in the chat are awesome. So, so here's somebody who I agree. And then, are the jury permitted to leave after seeing the witnesses in such a state yesterday? And of cause hearing. Oh, after hearing the 911 call, are the jury permitted to leave? Oh, no, they have to stay in their seats, so they can't just get up. But the judge did take a break. So they can only leave their seats when the judge chooses to take a break. But they can raise their hands. If it's too tough, a juror can raise their hand, and then the judge will, question them, of course, off camera. And if they say they just can't do it anymore, the judge would call a break for sure. But they can't just get up and go. But yes, jurors were crying. And, to have like all those people on the jury crying like that, that's very significant. That does help the prosecution. So, but Attorney Reddington is coming across very sympathetic. He handled Patrick Clancy in a sympathetic way. For example, the prosecution didn't say this, but he did. He specifically asked Patrick, if you need to take a break, let me know. So the jurors catch on to all these little things. He was holding Lindsay's hand as Lindsay was bawling and shaking during the testimony. So let's see. Judy, as I've said, I was ignorant about mental health until it happened to the person I least expected. Same here. And it's real. I'm really interested in what the experts have to say. And I have to agree with you, Judy, because, when I started out as a young prosecutor right out of BC Law School, I went to the DA's office, and I didn't get, I had no idea. And plus, back in that day, we didn't have open discussions about mental health. And remember, back then, I'm dating myself here, but we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, we couldn't follow trials like this. I mean, we followed, the O.J. Simpson case. That was a gavel to gavel on court TV way back in the day. But as far as following trials like this one, it's not something we did. But I remember, I was young and really had no idea. And I would see people on the streets and obviously suffering from mental illness. And I was afraid of them, I would say, back when I was younger, right? And then as I became older and then had that, and I talk openly about the fact that I have a very good, close family friend who suffers from bipolar 1 disorder and had to go in and out of mental hospitals. And it's such a close family friend that I visited at McLean, and I saw this person in severe psychosis. And this person was totally extremely smart. You would never in a million years expect this to happen. And it's so sad because it's the luck of the draw. There wasn't, as far as first they looked at family history, and the person that I'm familiar with didn't, as we know, didn't have a big family history of mental illness like that. So unless it happened generations before and came out, or a combination of genes, who knows? But this is certainly, it will make people aware. And I've had some interesting experts on my show. Paige Bellenbaum was excellent. And what I was doing last night was going back through that. I'd like to play little clips from her. It might be great to play little clips from her as we talk like this during court breaks. I will do that, but that means I've got to prepare them and put them into my StreamYard, which I can easily do. So, but I've got to pick the right ones. Okay, thank you. The judge said they will resume. Yeah. Okay, good. I imagine in the afternoon then. So that'll be good. And Michelle, I'm very familiar with mental health. Close family member has just like me. Just like my close family, or my friend has bipolar. They go from night to day, and something triggers it. Yes. So that's what I think. Yes. Okay. So Michelle is basically saying the same thing that I observed. The one thing, though, I will say, Michelle, and you tell me if you think the same thing. So my observations about my close family friend, was she was completely, you know, just, when I say normal, like the normal, like nobody's normal, but she was completely like us, right? She did very well in school. And right before she was going to college, had this sudden break. And they still don't know what it was triggered by. So I believe they think it could have been triggered by, she went on an antidepressant. So if you have underlying diagnosis of bipolar 1, you cannot go on an antidepressant. It will put you into mania. So, but obviously they didn't know she had a bipolar 1 in her system, I guess I should say, or it was triggered by marijuana. So, but anyway, it was triggered. And then she struggled for 6 years in and out of hospitals. And when she was in severe mania, I mean, she talked really fast. She couldn't sit down. She was running back and forth. And it took a long time for them to even get her down. But over the years, so she was 18 when this happened. And then I think it took at least 6 or 7 years, and she was never able to go back to college, which is, it's very sad. But she was ultimately did the electric shock therapy, and that helped her. And now she's working, and she's able to, this is the longest she's been out of the hospital. But my understanding is, and Michelle, I love this talk that we're having. My understanding though is postpartum psychosis can wax and wane differently from bipolar 1, because in the bipolar 1 mania, that person's in mania, and they don't come out of it within 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even that day. It takes time. So I'm curious as to what your experience is. So of course I'm looking at, do you mind explaining jury selection? I don't mind explaining jury selection at all. So what happened, Mandy, I appreciate this because it helps me to think of things that, I love the questions. And it reminds me back when I was teaching law at Boston College, because that was my favorite thing, responding to students' questions. So jury selection here in Massachusetts, it's called voir dire. And in this particular case, it went on much longer because as jurors came to the court, and I think not like 90, something like that, people were called to jury selection. So they showed up in the big courtroom, and then they had to fill out this long questionnaire because this case involves mental illness. So after they filled out the questionnaire, voir dire occurred. And that was when the attorneys could ask them questions, because during voir dire, the attorneys get certain challenges. So you have for cause challenges, and that can be really, for cause would be, for example, if one of the jurors knew one of the attorneys or knew one of the witnesses. So as a juror, you look at the witness list, which is really long. So, if you're friends with or related to or know one of the witnesses, you're immediately dismissed for cause. So, if somebody gets up and says, I can't sit for this long because I have childcare responsibilities, that person may be dismissed for cause. So then you have peremptory challenges, and that's a certain number of challenges each attorney gets. So that was raised this time. And I believe they had as many as 18. So that means you can dismiss them for any reason but for race. So you have to be careful with that. Like, you can't just suddenly start dismissing, have this, like, say you dismissed all the Asians or whatever. So you can't do that. But let's say you see a juror that for whatever reason, you just have a bad feeling about that jury. Like, let's say you're on the defense, and and you just have a gut feeling, you can dismiss that juror. Or they may be called up to sidebar, and they may say, yeah, I've had a history of mental health in my family, or I suffered from postpartum depression, something like that, they say they can be fair and impartial. So then it's up to the attorneys, the Commonwealth, do you want to dismiss this person, use one of your peremptory challenges? And you may decide, yeah, I'll use one of my peremptory challenges and get rid of that juror for whatever reason. But you got to be careful, because it's like a chess match. You don't want to use, you have to look ahead at what is coming on the panel. Meaning, like, let's say you use up all of your peremptory challenges and you don't have any more left. And then all of a sudden this juror comes on that looks, let's say you're the defense, that looks really favorable to the Commonwealth. Oh, you used up your peremptory challenges, so there's nothing you can do, and that person might get on the jury. So it takes time to go through the jurors like this, especially in a case like that. So hopefully I've explained jury selection. So now we have 18 jurors. So that means 12 will hear it and the rest will be alternates. And in Massachusetts, it's a lottery system. So names are pulled out of a hat. And then, that's how they end up with the 12. So that doesn't happen till the very end, because each juror, each of the 18 could be one of the deliberating jurors. You just don't know. So that you don't tell people if they're going to be an alternate from the very get-go, because then they might not listen as much, right? So hopefully I've explained that. And let's go back to the chat. I had trouble sleeping last night and only woke up about 30 minutes ago. Any idea what time they will be back in the courtroom? I'm not sure what time they'll be back in the courtroom. It'll take time for the view. And so right now, so they started court early, and the judge explained to the jury what they would be doing. They get up on a bus. They're escorted to the ThreeV restaurant. Now, all these places are pretty close together, but you've got to go to, believe me, I know it. I live not too far away. So they've got to go from Plymouth Court. They hop on Route 3. Then they get off at Kingston, and they'll go to, well, I don't know if they'll go to the house first or what, but they'll visit the house. They'll walk around. They'll take their time. Then they go to the restaurant and then the CVS. So I don't anticipate them coming back in this morning. It would I don't even know what time it is now, but it would likely be in the afternoon, but you never know. I think it'll take some time. So let's see. And Pam, I hope you did you have trouble sleeping from this case? A lot of people are having trouble sleeping. It's tough. It's a tough one. Sometimes I can't, let's see. If I've missed your chat, if I've missed your comment, let me know, because sometimes it goes up and I can't catch it. So yes, Michelle, psychosis is definitely different than bipolar. It takes days to come out of it. So Michelle and I were both talking about our experiences with people we know who've suffered from bipolar 1 and mania. And it does take several days, even weeks, to come out of it, believe it or not, if it's that bad. And the more often people go into states of mania and psychosis, the harder it is for the medical providers to get them back down. So it's crazy the amount of medications that they do use to get the person back down, the antipsychotic medications. Again, it's a lot of times it's trial and error. So when I'm looking at this case, having now understanding a little bit about mental health myself, the amount of medications, Michelle, I want to ask you this question. Does the amount of medications that Lindsay Clancy was on prior to this happening, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like I do, that the providers were doing a bit of trial and error? I'd like to know your opinion on that. So let's see. Okay, so Barry, if Lindsay was over-medicated and in psychosis, why did she wait until her husband was out of the house for 30 minutes to em her babies? Why didn't she do it? I can't use those words. When Patrick was home. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point, right? Jurors are going to be thinking about that. If she was in, so basically, Barry is raising a very interesting issue. If she went into such a state of psychosis where she didn't know what she was doing, would it matter that, like, she would just do it when he was home, right? That actually makes sense. That goes to the Commonwealth's theory of their case that she wasn't in psychosis at the time these crimes were committed, that this was evidence, again, of rational behavior. Barry, you raise a very good point. You know, I mean, that's why this case is so divided. And that's why this chat really, I think, helps with what jurors might be thinking at this point. So all of you raise excellent, excellent points. Let's see what I have here. She didn't hear, that's another, Pam, that's another good point. She didn't hear the voice until her husband was gone. So the experts are going to have to really educate us and the jury about that, because for many of us, it doesn't make sense. So it just was the perfect window of time that she heard those voices. Like, basically the voice came in and said, okay, he's out of the house. Do it now. Do it now. This is your only opportunity. Something to that effect. And I believe the voice was something to that effect. Yeah. Will the jurors be able to, I don't know. You know what? This is a good one. So at Barry, there is a question. That's a question that no one can answer. And I agree. And this is a great discussion, you guys. So here's a good question, Mandy. Could Patrick Clancy implicate himself purely by mistake in this case? Okay, that's interesting. Not criminally, in my opinion. Maybe civilly. So Patrick Clancy has filed a civil lawsuit against the providers, the hospital, the people that treated her, right? Saying that they didn't give her the proper medical treatment, and as a result, this happened. So it's possible in that civil case, they'll be using some of his statements that he made on the stand against him. Now, what would those statements be? So I was I was a civil trial lawyer for a number of years. I was on the defense side of things. So, and I did represent like corporations. I represented hospitals. Did I represent a hospital? I'm not sure if I represented. I represented, I represented McDonald's, Pizzeria Uno. I represented various companies. I did a lot of premises liability. So if someone got hurt on a somebody's premise, I would very often step in. So that's what I did. I wasn't on the other side, on the plaintiff's side. So on that note, this is the only thing I can think of. When Patrick was testifying that she said she was worried that she could harm the children, and of course, I'm not blaming this guy at all, but I'm just trying to think devil's advocate type of thing. The defense in the civil case might say, well, if somebody is expressing that they're having horrible thoughts and they are worried they might harm the children, why didn't you have her committed? Something like that. So they'll try to put culpability on him. And I think that would come out more in the civil case. I don't think that he can be held criminally responsible here. Of course, the jury sympathizes with him. I sympathize with him. And one thing I will say about Patrick, he was in the tech industry. She was the nurse. So Lindsay worked at the Mass General Hospital, helping to deliver babies. I mean, she was in the labor and delivery unit. And I know some of the people that worked with her, and they said she was a great mother, everything. So, did Patrick understand mental health? Did he realize that he could have had her committed at the time? So I know from my own experiences with this family friend that yes, you can have somebody committed. The police actually do a very good job here in Massachusetts helping with that situation. But did Patrick know that? Like, would he want to commit his wife? Should he have left her alone with the kids? And he did go to New York City for 2 days. Should he have left her alone with the kids at all? That would be more of an issue for the civil case. So that's my take on that. But I think that was a really good question. Excellent question. God, I feel like I'm teaching again. I love it. I don't think it was, Pam, I don't think it was over medicated. I think it was too many changes of medications. Yep. That could be it as well. And that's what the defense is going to try to argue. And the changes, like the Seroquel, she was having quite a bad reaction on the Seroquel. And remember, one other big thing that will come out is Lindsay was having a very difficult time sleeping to the point where she couldn't sleep. And I know that when the family friend of mine goes into mania, it's she doesn't sleep. So that very often makes it worse and she ends up in the hospital. So medication does make a difference, but it's noticeable. My mother was prescribed Ambien for sleep and she started hallucinating and saw that, oh my God, and saw that it wasn't normal. So Michelle, that's really interesting. See, people can start hallucinating. My family friend hallucinated. She thought somebody was in the room and she heard voices as well. And that was bipolar 1, but that's very interesting. So that was caused by Ambien. Wow. Michelle, thank you for sharing. And I think sometimes these things are very hard to share because you're talking about your mother here. And I appreciate you sharing with us because I think all of these examples, it's amazing how many of you right here in the chat have experiences with mental illness. So I think it's very helpful. Thank you for sharing that with us, Michelle. I appreciate it. Let's see what else. So Pam, I've seen SSRIs, which people consider safe, completely mess people up, even when following the recommended guidelines. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, even antidepressants. Well, obviously, if you have an underlying bipolar, antidepressants. Also, this is interesting. Here I'm sharing as well. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've just thought of this, but I'm sharing. So way back when, I remember when I was in my 20s, I took a birth control pill and it made me like not normal. Like I remember it must have done something to my hormones because I was mean to my husband at the time. Like I was just like not normal. Like I threw something at the wall. Like I was kind of, I guess you could say it really impacted my like I was quick to anger and I immediately went off of that. And you know what? I never went on it again because I didn't like the reaction. I'm sure I could have tried different types of birth control, but my God, it really impacted my hormones. So whatever that was that I took, I had a negative reaction. So, and I just remembered that just now. So Ambien made me hallucinate too. Wow. I'm never going to take that. They gave it to me in the hospital once. See, one time. My best way to sleep, believe it or not, is I listen to my Audible books. I put it on for 30 minutes, the timer, and it helps me fall right to sleep. That's my favorite way. Of course, if I'm really anxious about something, that's one thing, but it takes my mind off of whatever I'm anxious about. So that's just my little thing. But I've never really had too much of a problem with sleep, but I know a lot of people do. That's for sure. it's so scary. I agree. Very, very scary. She was probably embarrassed to have these thoughts too. Women try to figure things out on their own and not bother people. Women can very often compartmentalize. We're really good at that. And very often we hide our emotions. I mean, sometimes we don't. Sometimes there's been times when I haven't hid my emotions. But yeah, it's very possible. Maybe she would. One of my other friends said, and again, I'm just throwing this out there. One of my other friends said, do you think that she thought she was losing Patrick? I don't know. I mean, why was Patrick going to New York City and leaving her alone when she had those young children and she was struggling? So I still don't know. It appears based on the photographs and her Facebook pages that she had a good marriage and she was a loving mother, etc. But Facebook can be deceiving. People don't post their negative things. And by the way, speaking of Facebook, a little diversion, but this generation, so my daughter's 29, and she will not allow anybody to post any pictures of her babies on Facebook at all. So I haven't been able to post those adorable pictures at all or share them. And you know what? I get it. But they're so adorable. Oh, it's killing me. But I think this is a great discussion on mental illness. I agree. Mental illness is not linear. No, mental illness is gray. And I don't think that the medical community has scratched the surface as far as the human brain goes. So that's my thought on that. The first thing they taught me in EMT school was there are no absolutes in medicine. Nothing is black and white. There is a lot of gray area. And that makes sense. A lot of people, their experience with medicine might be they felt, okay, so last year or 2 years ago, I was coming out of art class. I love oil painting. And I was carrying all my oil paints and my flip-flop blew out. So I fell and I broke my wrist. The bone was actually sticking right out. But guess what? They gave me surgery and they put plates and everything in there and it's perfectly normal. So I think some people think, well, if they can fix a broken leg or a broken wrist or even some of the cancers, what about the human brain? But it really doesn't work like that at all. So yeah, Michelle, you seem to know a lot about mental illness for sure. And then, mental illness, but you know what? I thought I knew mental illness too, but I don't know anything about postpartum psychosis. I know bipolar, but not postpartum psychosis. How something affects most people could affect someone else completely different, 100%. Oh yeah, for sure. And, another thing that's really interesting too is when I visited my family friend at McLean, they would, they would go, they would administer the meds and all that stuff. And so many of the patients who had different things going on, right, they would also research the various side effects. So that's the other thing that I noticed was this particular person would research. They would almost hyper focus on all the possible side effects. Like, oh, I don't want to go on that because of this side effect. So that is also something that I think the mental health community has to deal with is the Google doctors, right? How many of us, Google doctor everything. So, that's another, I'd like to hear, Michelle, what do you think about that? I'm curious. I don't recall hearing anything about her taking a bunch of pills right before. Yeah. No, Pam, well, no, not right before this, but remember she would try I think there were 13 different psychotropic medications during the 2 months prior to this incident. But I'm not sure, I can't recall what she was on specifically at this time. So that should come out when we hear from her treatment, the people who treated her. So that's a good point. But Kevin Reddington has made a big point in his opening statement. And even when Patrick Clancy was on the stand, he took those pill bottles and put them down one by one, right in front of the jury. So that resonated with them. Like, oh, look at all these medications that she was trying. She was actually attempting to K herself, but unsuccessful. Yeah. Now, it's interesting because the prosecution wants us to believe that attempt was superficial. But Reddington wants us to believe that it was all part of the psychosis. So what she did to the children and then herself was all part of the psychosis and hearing voices. So we shall see. Can you imagine the verdict watching this? I anticipate, now I could be wrong, but I anticipate a jury is going to be out for a while on this one. There's so much gray area. I'd say of all the cases we've followed so far, of course, there was Karen Reed where you had the two different camps there. But most of the cases that I follow, that I watch or that we all follow, there's not this much of a gray area, for sure. So, I trust Dr. Google more than a practitioner. I've seen too many dingbats with prescription. That is so funny, Pam. I like dingbats. That's a good word. Oh my God. Yeah, Dr. Google. But you have to be careful with Dr. Google, I'll tell you. I have a friend who I call him Google Doctor. You know, that's what he does. He Google doctors everything. And I laugh. I'll say, okay, Google Doctor, because he'll start Googling. And my daughter does that as well. So as you know, I'm here in New York City and I have 3 children. And my one daughter, the youngest, lives with me. And she is back home in Scituate taking care of the 3 cats. So we rescued 3 kittens last year off the streets of Boston, and they're so adorable. But she is a cat hypochondriac and a cat Google doctor. So one of them is sneezing nonstop. Okay. And she wants to bring the cat to the vet. And I'm like, okay, it's possible. There might be some underlying condition. And I don't mean to laugh, but it seems like every time I go away, there's something. She goes to the vet emergency room. And sometimes the vet will send her home and say, well, I think the cat's okay. And who pays the bills? Me. So I wish I had caught the Karen Reed trial. Pam, that was something else. And it was very interesting to follow. I wish that, so I did follow that. I was just getting into YouTubing. So I did a podcast before this, which was, one that you would just listen to. And then I got into YouTube around the time of the second Karen Reed trial. So I've been building it ever since. But yeah, what a doozy of a trial. And people are still very interested in the Karen Reed case. There's 4 civil trials that have come out of that. So as a civil trial attorney, I will be following developments in that because people are still interested. People will be interested in that case probably longer than I'll be alive. I mean, gosh. So, so this is interesting. I honestly believe it's going to be 100 too many people are on the fence about this case. Your hat goes out to those babies. Oh, I know, but you can't help but feel sorry for a woman who doesn't have yeah, I know. I mean, that's a good question. And you've raised an interesting point. I'm curious. How did you feel when the cameras showed Lindsay Clancy like visibly shaking and crying during that 911 call, or when they were showing the baby clothes and Kevin Reddington was holding her hand? she is I mean, what a living hell. I wouldn't want to live like that, knowing that I did what I did, and how awful, how awful. So will the jurors sympathize with Lindsay Clancy? That's an interesting point that you've raised. Thank you. No, I thought I heard the day of a couple hours prior she took the pills. I don't know where I heard it though. Yeah, I know what it's getting. I can't say with certainty what she was on the day this happened. She was likely on something. But you know what? We'll have to hear testimony on that for sure. I don't think it was the Seroquel because she stopped the Seroquel. She had severe reactions to the Seroquel. So I don't know. It could have been a lack of sleep that triggered the psychosis as well. I'm certainly not a doctor, but it's interesting. I think to have psychosis so conveniently only when the husband is gone, and also not during her phone call with him. Okay, so this goes to the prosecution's argument that her claims of psychosis were convenient. So, here's the question I'm going to throw out to the chat is, what was the motive behind, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say you believe the prosecution. We do have evidence that she was a loving mother. So if she was not in some sort of psychotic state, what would the motive be of her doing this to her kids and then attempting to end her life, or faking to attempt to end her life? Like what? So one of my friends, it's interesting. One of my friends said this, and it was a male friend. He said, well, maybe she, this was a dark thought of his. So again, it's not me. It's just what he said. He said, maybe she thought she was losing Patrick. Maybe she wanted to take the kids away from him and then have him find her like that. That was his theory. And I don't know. But jurors may cross a juror's mind. So I don't know. What would the motive be? What do you guys think? And if I've missed you, the chat's going fast. A perfectionist who could not abide the imperfections of being a parent, especially of 3 small children. Okay, Kevin. So Kevin, it's interesting to hear that from you. Yeah, that's one of the prosecution's theories, that because they're showing her schedule, that she was really scheduled. Now, I know parents, I back when I was raising 3 young kids, I was in play groups and all that. And I knew parents like her, or women like her, who were really, really scheduled. I remember my husband and I were talking about a friend of ours. We went over, we were going to have dinner with this couple, and we went over to their house to meet them first. And the wife was very, very controlling like that with the babysitter. And she had these schedules written out. And I kind of thought of her. So basically, Kevin, you're thinking that she was such a controlling person and she was losing control, and therefore she was not able to deal with the imperfections of being a parent with 3 children. That's possible. And that's what the Commonwealth wants us to believe, but I don't know if I'm buying into that theory necessarily, but very interesting. Jurors will think of that. Thank you for that. Last night, I watched 2 different shows on postpartum psychosis. So sad, and sounds just like this case. So I'm curious what shows you watched about. Let us know what shows you were watching. I had to watch something. What did I watch last night? Oh, I tried something new on. Here I am in New York by myself. So I watched. I watched a thriller on one of Harlan Coben's thrillers on Netflix. It's pretty. Oh, what was I forget? I can't believe I can't think of the name of it. But I wanted to take my mind off of this horrible case. There were some good true crime documentaries I was going to watch, and I'm like, no, I've had enough true crime for the week. So I watched a Harlan Coben thing. God, I can't think of the name of it. So keep up the great work. Well, thank you so much. And you know what? If there's a case you want me to follow next, I really enjoy the chat. I enjoy the conversation. It makes me think as well. Like some of the things raised in the chat, I didn't even think about. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I've always been a people person, so that's why I tried cases, because I did like to connect to the jury. I like to. I'm also a writer. I've written 3 novels and 2 legal thrillers and 1 nonfiction, Whitey on Trial. But then it took me a really long time to write the 4th book, and it didn't come out exactly as I wanted. So I will get back to that. But right now it's a weird time for publishing. It's a very strange time, and I don't want to spend all this time writing another novel unless I'm sure it will be published, so I would like to get a book deal and then write. So that's kind of my overall plan. But in the meantime, people keep asking, are you writing? I'm like, no, but I'm doing this and I love it. So we don't really, I know you don't have to prove motive, but jurors often like motive. We just need to know that she knew what she did was wrong. And I think that's been proven. Well, it's two-pronged, that she knew what she did was wrong, and was she able to stop herself? So it's actually a two-pronged thing legally here in Massachusetts. So the prosecution has been doing its job to try to show deliberate premeditation. So again, remember, during the prosecution's case in chief, they have to prove the elements of the 3 M's that we have here. So they have to kind of, as a prosecutor, we had to check the box that we got all of the elements of the case that we were trying to prove, of the crime that we were trying to prove. So yeah, so that's why they're through Patrick, through all of the witnesses, they're trying to bring out a plan, that this was pre-planned and deliberate and rational. So all of this evidence that we've heard so far does go to the prosecution's case. But remember, we haven't heard from the defense yet. So, and I think motive, I know you don't have to have motive. We don't need a motive. But very often jurors do like to wonder why. They like the why, and they'll be talking about that. But I think that's a very good point that you bring up. And I like the different views in this. So I heard 20 minutes yesterday. Well, Pam, yeah, yesterday was quite repetitive, so it's very possible the 20 minutes you heard might have been enough. But yesterday we went through the first responders, and of course that was important testimony because, again, the first responders, it brought reality, I think, into the courtroom, the reality of how horrible it was for first responders. And again, one of the things that kept coming up in the photos that Amber showed earlier, we saw the murder weapons. We saw those exercise bands. So that was key yesterday. Plus, the concept of the attempt to end her life. So all of that was important to the Commonwealth's case. So yeah. But again, the defense kept saying this is just piling on. It's repetitive. We've admitted that she actually did it, but she didn't have the mental capacity. So they were trying to move it along as best they could. Michelle, you have a point. She looked for those exercise bands. I can't get past that. after he left, strangulation is one of the worst ways. Yeah, it sure as heck is one of the worst ways to go. And the prosecution really brought that home, I think, with the first responders, describing the neck injuries. That was horrible. I mean, I can't even imagine. That's why one of the reasons I held those babies, my daughter's baby, my grandchildren. I feel old saying that word, but oh my God. I mean, just horrible, absolutely horrible. And it takes time. It takes time and effort to do it 3 different times and to locate those bands. So yeah, that goes to deliberate premeditation. You're absolutely right. And then she couldn't handle the knife. Yeah, I mentioned that. She couldn't handle the knife. Jurors will be thinking about that. Horrible. Just awful. I did hear the entire hearing yesterday. The 20 minutes was about the time Patrick was gone. Yeah, I thought you were on the whole time, Pam. That's why I was confused. Okay. Yeah, I knew you were here. Yeah, people are guessing. It's one of them I watched was on another YouTube creator on Criminally Obsessed called a mother who survived postpartum psycho. You know what? I will, you know what? That's a good idea. I will look for a guest like that for my show. I do have a team behind me, and Steve Cohen is wonderful. He's part of the team. They call it the M&M team because I'm Margaret McLean, but they spell it M&M, and like the singer. And Steve Cohen is great at getting guests. And in fact, some of the guests that Steve has been able to get from me to cover this case, Tommy Pope, who prosecuted Susan Smith back in the day. He was excellent. I'll have to get clips from that, and then Paige Bellenbaum, and I've had attorneys on as well to talk about the case. So yeah, I will. That's great. I will look. In fact, if you can't, it would be really help. Cool Whippet. What is that person's name? If you remember or could find out that person's name, I'll have her on my channel, or I'll ask her. Let's put it that way. That would be wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is interesting, Pam. I don't believe that looking for the bands is an indication of premeditation. They had a home gym in the basement. The bands were weapons of opportunity. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. She was down in the basement, and it just happened that she had 3 exercise bands there. Yeah. Were they weapons of opportunity, or did she think this through? That's the question the jury's going to have to grapple with. Yeah, I know. I can't get past the children being found face down. Neither can I. She must have known she was taking their lives and couldn't. Oh my God, that's a good point. I didn't even think of this. Couldn't watch the life going out of them. Oh my gosh, you have a point. I did not think of that. That's just awful. That's just. And then what I noticed as well, that was Dawson, the little boy, was completely in another room. Like, was he hiding? Was he trying to get away? Did he hear the screams from Cora possibly, or the baby? I don't know. That's just awful. Ugh. Tough to watch. So I'll go back and look. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cool Whippet. Don't take too much time. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. But I would, that would be a wonderful guest for me to have on. I appreciate the suggestion though, but don't like kill yourself doing it. Thank you very much. So in the 40 years, Kevin, in the 40 years of clinical practice, I have never seen a psychotic episode run with the efficiency of the German rail system. Okay. That's a good point. So Kevin, that's interesting. You are in the field, it sounds like. So I appreciate what your thoughts are. Thank you for sharing. That's interesting. Right. So basically, I think what you're getting at, Kevin, is psychotic episodes vary from person to person, and there's no prediction of what someone will do. And I from what I've seen from my family friend with the bipolar 1, I have to agree with you. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be tough, so tough to be in that profession. And we need more people in that profession because so much needs to be done. We need more research, more facilities. There's not enough beds for people. And sometimes to get a bed, you have to know somebody. I mean, you do. It's sad. So Pam, here is another angle, but based on spiritual beliefs. Did the rapid medication change open her up to demonic possession? Is that the voice she suddenly heard? Just a theory. That's an interesting theory. You know, I've very often thought about mental illness and, you going way back in time. So one of the things that Paige Bellenbaum said in the interview with me was way, 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 way back. I'll have to go back and look for it. But in the BC, before Christ, BC times, it might have been Hippocrates that she was quoting from, but way back, they mentioned in the medical writings from the ancient days that a woman was giving birth to, or had given birth to a baby, and went crazy. So postpartum psychosis was something that the ancients were aware of. So this has been going on for many, many, many years. And I'm wondering if back during, at one time during the witch trials or, previous centuries, if people who were considered witches or possibly possessed by the devil were in fact suffering from some level of psychosis. So, that's an interesting way of looking at it, and what will the jurors bring religion into it? And was that on the jury questionnaire? Very, very interesting. What you guys have the best insight. Your daughter is so lucky to have you. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I'm lucky to have her too. And I wish, it's tough. It will be tough to go back to Situate at the end of the month, Massachusetts, because her babies are here in Manhattan. But so I figured out the New York subway system from the place that I'm renting. I'm actually renting in Soho, and I figured it out how to get there. And I'm actually even good enough. I gave somebody directions yesterday, and I was proud of that. So, but yeah, she does need help. Having twins is tough. And I think about, and sometimes, she does get a little snappy, and I think it's tough. It's tough to have there's hormonal changes. There's a lack of sleep with the babies up all night. Remember, twins, they're still newborns. They're up all throughout the night and they have to be fed. So it's not easy. So, and I agree, this is by far one of the saddest cases I have ever watched. Me too. It is the saddest case I've ever watched, or I've ever, by far. And I thought Brian Walsh was sad. Of course that was sad. But man, this takes the cake. Why do you think the defense is not questioning the witnesses? Well, the defense wants to get through it as fast as it can, because all of this is the Commonwealth's case in chief. So crime scene photos, like Reddington doesn't want the jury to see the same photographs of the exercise bands over and over and over. he was hoping it could be, so 200 people were on the Commonwealth's witness list, and he was objecting to some of that. He's like, look, listen, it's repetitive. Yeah, the Commonwealth has the right to build their case. And that's exactly what they're doing. So I think there are two reasons that strategy-wise, Kevin Reddington doesn't want to come across as someone who's not sympathetic. For example, remember the first responder who testified, the police officer who was just like visibly shaken up, and if he didn't cry in the stand, he was about to cry in the stand. He could hardly get his words out. I think Kevin Reddington said, "Thank you for your service," or something to that effect. It didn't want to talk, cross-examine him. So he's got to be careful. And again, what will it achieve if she's already admitted that to the physical acts of the crimes? She's just not admitting to the mental part. And remember, mens rea is something that the Commonwealth must prove, that you had the mental capacity to commit these crimes. So I think Kevin Reddington strategically did a good job with handling, with not cross-examining very much. So hopefully, yes, yesterday's witnesses were mostly cumulative, and that's what the word I was trying to think of, cumulative, 100%. That was Kevin Reddington's argument. So I'm a little behind here, but the one time I took birth control, it completely altered me. I stopped it immediately. Well, that's what I said earlier in the chat. It completely altered me too. The same thing happened to me. I took it once, and my God, I feel like I remember throwing something at the wall. I swear. And I immediately stopped it and never took it again. Now, I'm sure they could have come up with a proper pill, but I was afraid. I'm like, oh my God, this is not me. And that was before I had children, when I was in my young 20s. So New York City is so fun. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm right in Soho, so I'm right in the midst. I got lucky. I got this great Airbnb for a month, and I'm right in the midst of, the shopping and all these little dinner places, except it's hard not to spend money. So I did my first grocery shopping yesterday. I went to I got Whole Foods delivered. Actually, I got Whole Foods delivered during the stream. So, and then I had to put it away. So I took myself out so I could put my milk away. But it is interesting. And I've had friends come and visit. They'll be coming and visit for the weekends. My youngest daughter, who's the cat hypochondriac, is coming next weekend. And it's my other daughter's 30th birthday. So we will have fun celebrating that. And we'll probably babysit the twins so she can go out with her husband. So, but I'm so glad you guys are joining me here in New York City. I wish you could, hey, anybody in New York, say hello. So, yeah, hormones are horrible. Going through menopause, man. And sometimes you don't realize it until you're on the other end of things. So it's the women's bodies are just a mystery. They really are. They're a mystery to me, and I'm a woman. So, so hard with newborns. Yeah, never mind too. Yes, very, very hard. And of course, I've been on various different. I've done legal analysis for different media outlets for this, and I don't even want my own daughter to watch the media. My expert, normally you say, hey, tune in, I'm on Fox today or whatever, NBC, whatever, and I don't even want her to watch, because I think it cuts too close to home after having given birth to babies. So I'm like, you know what, you don't. And there was an article from Parade, and people, no, it was, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. The New York Post. So I'm like, Sarah, don't read it. Don't read it. You just don't want to read it. they switched my daughter from Celexa to Zoloft. She immediately started hallucinating, then couldn't. Oh my God. Wow. She couldn't walk, then lost 6 months. Oh my gosh, of memory. This was after just one dose. The ER would not believe me. Pam, thank you for sharing. That's horrible. Jeez. You know what? You know, Celexa, Zoloft, some of those medications work for some people, and some people, they certainly don't. So this is an example of what can happen. And this is why this chat is just so enlightening, because who would know that that could happen? You know, some people, that's the worst part of it, is when people don't believe you and you tell them, I've had these symptoms, and they don't necessarily believe you. And I'm finding, you guys might be finding the same thing, but I used to have the most amazing primary care physician. And then she had to leave the practice because of her own, she was younger too. And I was thinking, oh, good, I'll have her the rest of my life. But she had to leave because she had issues with her own child. So then I got somebody else as a primary, and it's just not the same. And then I just got notice that they switched my appointment because the primary is going to be away, and they're giving, it's just not, it's hard. Medical care is harder these days, I think, to get good medical care. And Massachusetts is known for good medical care too. So, you feel for people who are really struggling with mental illness to get the proper care and to find the proper psychologist and psychiatrist. So many of them are booked up. It's very, very hard to find a good one, find someone you can really relate to. I've tried that, and it's tough, very, very tough. So it was Zoloft. God, yeah, that's nuts. 4 ER visits in 3 days before we get treatment. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. And Pam, you must have been beside yourself, because as a parent, when your daughter is suffering or any family member is suffering, you're in your own living hell, because we're caregivers and we're supposed to keep them safe. That's when I'm holding the two little babies, I'm like, we have to keep these babies safe. And we were going on a walk yesterday in New York, and my daughter, and I was pushing the carriage, and I was so worried. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to push the carriage across the street. Yeah, I have the walk sign, but you just like, I got to keep these babies safe. It's just scary world, right? Having taken care of person struggling with mental illness, I can tell you the sorting out of meds is complicated and ongoing. Timothy Frazier, I couldn't agree with you more. It is very complicated. It's, from what I've seen, it's a trial and error. And it's scary, because if it's an error, it can be a big error. I mean, it can cause somebody to be triggered into psychosis or have a horrible, horrible reaction. It's super scary out there. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Judy, that Pam, that's really tough. So mental health, and mental health needs more attention. And this case will certainly give us, I hope it will educate the nation on mental health. In fact, one thing that I thought was interesting was I was talking to the producer of Channel 10 NBC, which is Boston's NBC. And we were chatting yesterday, and he said, wow, it's amazing the amount of people that are interested in this case. So when I talked to him, we were thinking that it was going to be a case that would be too hard for people to watch. And it is hard to watch, with the baby, the children, and losing their lives the way they did. But it has been an eye-opener on mental illness. And that's why, like, I could sit in this chat literally all day, because as you guys raise different issues, it's making me think about my own experiences. Like, I'd completely forgotten that when I took that pill back in, the birth control pill back in my 20s, what a negative reaction it had on me. But man, and we're all bringing, and I like how we're all opening up as well. So this is such a great chat. I really, really appreciate you being here. And again, I'm a new channel. I'm not as big as some of the other ones that they got their start before me. My son always says, Mom, literally my son. So I have 3 kids. I have, the oldest is the one with the babies. She's 29. I have a son who's 27. And then my youngest is 24. And, oh no, she's 25. And my son said, Mom, if you had only started podcasting around the time Joe Rogan did, I'm like, wouldn't it be nice, Davey? And I that's his name. I'd be like, yeah, Davey, then I'd have a yacht. But anyway, it is, I'm happy to be doing it now. So let's see. Sometimes I miss the chats when I'm chatting. Yeah, you know what? That's another point. What's interesting is, you think about the word psychopath. Okay, Kohlberger. I followed Kohlberger. In my view, he's a psychopath. Okay, oh my God. And the guy thinks, did you see the latest with Kohlberger, by the way? The latest is he is coming out. He had an interview with the New York Times, and he's saying, well, I was lied to by my attorneys, and I didn't understand what was going on when I pled guilty. I didn't fully understand. They lied to me, et cetera, et cetera. So he wants to appeal his guilty pleas. And of course, he doesn't stand a shot, because in Idaho, they have to prove a manifest injustice occurred under Idaho law. So that, he's not going to win. But that guy, man, I would say evil, right? Evil. He stalked his victims. And but here I see something a little bit different. So, it's interesting following these cases. Haven't you ever been to Walmart? That's kind of funny. Did you guys ever see the comedian about Walmart? It was a long time ago, but there's a comedian that did a skit on Walmart, like the 24-hour ones, like what you can run into at 1 a.m. It was funny. I forget who did that one. Maybe you guys will remember. Geez. And I remember, so I watched that and I laughed. And I remember it was around Christmas when I had the children. They were younger, and I went to Walmart at like midnight, and it was interesting to say the least. Thank you for approaching the case in such a human way. Greetings from Ecuador. Oh my God. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It keeps me going. And that's the way I am. I guess my personality is coming out too. So I do try to analyze these cases from a human perspective and from a mother and, God, now a grandmother. Also, I will tell you something interesting on a side note. Back when I was a young prosecutor in my 20s, I remember my first jury trial. So the thing about Massachusetts back in the day was we got to practice as young prosecutors in what they called a jury of 6. So operating under the influence cases, if you were caught for an OUI or a DWI, as they call it in New York State, drinking while driving, you could choose a bench trial, a trial before a judge, or you could try your chance before a jury of 6. So for young prosecutors, they would put us into the jury of 6 because it was great practice. Granted, great practice, that's what they would call it though, because, you would practice your styles in front of a jury of 6. So I'll never forget my first 3 jury trials was in this jury of 6 session with an OUI. And I had a mentor who was a man, and he was a great trial lawyer. And so I thought, well, I like his style. I'm going to copy him. And he had a style that was more bombastic and So I copied the style because it worked for him. And I lost my first 3 jury trials because it didn't work for me. I came across, I don't know, as maybe the B word. I'm not sure. But anyway, so I had to reevaluate, or I was going to lose my job as a prosecutor. And I thought, well, that style doesn't work for me. So the style that I adopted was I adopted more of a style that I have now. I wasn't as like go, 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 like maybe like a Nancy Grace style, but I tried the case more. I'd say I was more like a conversation with the juries, presenting all my evidence. I softened up my tone, and you know what? It worked. So you do learn about different styles, and that is more of who I am anyway. I wasn't that. It just didn't work for me because I was trying to pretend to be someone who I wasn't. So you learn, right? You live and learn. So I appreciate that. And greetings from, my God, I love the fact that you're tuning in from Ecuador. That is really cool. I have never been to Ecuador. I'd like to go. I've been to Belize, which I loved. Oh my gosh. I would love to go to Ecuador sometime. I've heard it's a beautiful country. So thank you for joining me here, and thank you for finding me. I know there's a lot of options out there, and I appreciate you guys being here. So spread the word. 100 joules. Oh, that's nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hi, the light camera. Oh, thank you so much. My child needs, yes. Well, this is how we build our channels on YouTube. So you will laugh at this one too, because I'm sharing. Gosh, during the Karen Reed trial, the second trial, when my son said, "Mom, you need to go to YouTube, not just be, whatever podcasts without video." So I said, "Okay, Davey." So I always listen to my son. So I bought the camera. I got the lights, I set up my studio, and I decided to live stream on like Karen Reed. Guess what? Nobody was nobody was in the studio at all. So I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Like I was literally just talking to the camera because nobody found me. But then I ended up going on other shows. I went on Kevin's show, providing legal analysis. And then he was very helpful. And, you learn stuff too. You learn that a stream can go down. You learn not to panic, So, believe it. And thank God for Amber, because actually what I'm doing now here in New York, my internet for some reason isn't as good. You'd think it would be great here in the city, but I had the cable company come to the apartment here. They came and they gave me a new modem, everything. So I'm like, oh, this is great. So then when I live streamed the other day, I was having problems again. And Amber, who has this perfect internet setup, actually is running the stream out of North Carolina. So it's really cool that I can be talking and she can actually run the stream, because it wouldn't be good if my stream kept going down. And of course now it seems to be doing okay. So I don't know, but it's really nice to have a team behind me. I think that has helped tremendously. So yes, you're going to do okay, Pam. Yeah, I don't even know what time it is here. I've been chatting. So it is 11:05. I'm actually expecting company soon because I have a friend coming in from the train. Hopefully she's not out. Hopefully she would have texted me because my phone's, oh geez, she called me. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to end this for now, and then we will come back in a little bit. If they, they'll probably come back in the afternoon, so I will put it back up. And thank you so much for the chat. I think it's been wonderful. Yes, it would be wonderful if you guys spread the news. I appreciate it, and we will. I'll come back in the afternoon. So again, thank you so much for listening and watching and participating in the Margaret McLean Show. And I will see you later.
purpose of the record, we return back to the matter of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. All parties are present, including the defendant, excluding the jury.
All right. Thank you for that. Ready for the jury? Como?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Defendant? All right. Let me bring the jury in.
Court, all rise. Jurors enter. This court's now in session. Please be seated.
Your Honor, for the purpose of the record, we return back to the trial of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. All parties are present, including the defendant and including all 18 jurors.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of the jury, we're now going to return, as I told you before, to the Commonwealth's case. And I'll ask the Commonwealth to call their next witness.
The Commonwealth would call Mark Anthony Maffio to the stand.
While we're waiting, you want to just, for the record, same objection and standing
All right.
objection, so
All right.
that keeps.
Come on, sir. Come on. You come right here, raise your right hand for the pledge.
You solemnly swear that the testimony and the evidence you should Thank you, sir. You may have a seat.
Watch your step here, please.
All right. Good morning, sir.
Your Honor.
All right. Attorney Buckingham, please.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please tell the jury your first and last name, please?
Yes, Mark Anthony Maffio,
And how about spelling your last name for the purpose of the record?
Maffeo,
And where are you employed, sir?
Duxbury Police Department,
How long have you been a police officer?
12 years.
And has your career been with the Duxbury Department, or do you work anywhere else?
I worked in Rockland and Cohasset prior to Duxbury.
So how long have you been at Duxbury Police?
9 years. 9?
Yes.
Yes.
What's your current rank or assignment at the Duxbury Police Department?
Patrol sergeant.
And I'm going to draw your attention back to January of 2023. What was your assignment then?
A detective.
Were you working on January 24th of 2023?
I was not. I was called in to work.
Okay, so who contacted you?
At the time, it was Detective Sergeant Jamali.
And is that the normal course in Duxbury when a larger incident or investigation occurs, that sometimes you'd be called in to work a scene if you're not on shift?
Yes.
And Detective Jamali, where did he tell you to go?
Initially was reported, I believe it was 42 South Summer Street in Duxbury.
And so do you recall if you went to that location?
I did.
When you arrived there, was the scene still active, meaning there were still kind of ambulances and everything on scene?
Yes.
Did you go into the house?
Not at that time, no.
Were you advised when you arrived on scene that one of the parties was being sent to the South Shore Hospital?
Yes.
And so as a result of that information, what did you do?
I was then tasked with going down to South Shore Hospital.
Now, when you went to South Shore Hospital, did you know the party that was going to be transported there?
Yes.
Who was the party that you were going to meet?
I was advised it was one of the homeowners, Lindsay Clancy.
And you later became aware that the home at 47 Summer Street was the home of Patrick and Lindsay Clancy, correct?
That's correct.
And again, you were also later made aware that they had the 3 children.
Correct.
Were you advised of where the 3 children were?
Yes,
And how about the husband? Were you advised of where Patrick Clancy was?
I was.
As far as the people transported to South Shore Hospital, you came to learn that only Lindsay Clancy was sent to that location, correct?
That's correct.
Did you expect somebody else to be arriving there?
Initially, before I had left the residence, it was a little bit of confusion. They thought that the husband was also being transported to South Shore.
And at some point, were you later advised that that ambulance was turned around and sent to Beth Israel in Plymouth?
Correct.
So when you were at the South Shore Hospital, did you have an opportunity to observe Lindsay Clancy?
I did.
In what condition was she when you observed her at South Shore Hospital?
She appeared sedated and unconscious with several lacerations to her arms and neck.
I have no objection to the photographs.
Thank you.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm going to show you 4 photographs real quick. If you could take a look at those.
Yep.
Do you recognize the individual in these photographs?
I do.
And were you present when these photographs were taken?
I don't recall.
Okay. As far as the condition that the person in these photographs was in, do you recall this to be a fair and accurate representation of what she looked like?
Yes.
I would ask to move these as the next board.
All right, those may be admitted.
It's 110 through 113.
Sir, if I could just draw your attention to the screen beside you. I'm showing you now what's been marked as Exhibit 110. And who is the individual depicted in this photograph?
Lindsay Clancy.
And those are the injuries that you observed that day of her on her neck?
Correct.
And showing you on the screen what's been marked as Exhibit number 111. Again, is that Lindsay Clancy?
Yes.
And the injuries that you observed on January 24th on her neck?
Correct.
And 112, Exhibit 112, in the middle of this photograph with an arm extended, there are some cuts in a cut in the middle. Did you observe those on January 24th as well?
I did.
And finally, Exhibit 113, that would be the other arm. Did you observe those cuts to that arm?
Yes.
Now, in addition to observing her at South Shore Hospital, did you do anything to collect potential evidence that day?
I did.
And what did you do?
I gathered, I believe they had been removed from the hospital staff, clothing, pants, shirt, I believe it was a scarf, and wedding bands.
Okay. May I approach again?
You may.
I'm just going to show you 7 photographs if you could take a look at those. Are these 7 photographs familiar to you? Are the items depicted in these photographs familiar?
Yes.
I'd move to admit these as the next exhibit, please.
Any objection?
I have no objection to any of the photographs.
They may be admitted.
It should be 114.7. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Reporter.
Now, sir, the items that you then collected, you said that they were provided to you. Who gave them to you?
It was one of the hospital staff.
Okay, and so in examining those, you would agree that those items have been cut off of the individual.
Correct.
And so after taking custody of those particular items, did other law enforcement arrive at South Shore Hospital?
Yes.
And who arrived?
Trooper Lawler from the Mass State Police and Officer Lepard from the Duxbury Police.
And again, you had been at the scene at 47 Summer Street, correct?
Correct.
And then you went to South Shore Hospital. Were other members of the Duxbury department at the Summer Street address and at other locations during the time you were at the hospital?
I would believe so, but I'm not positive.
And were you aware that the state police had become involved in this case?
Yes.
And based on your experience as a Duxbury officer, do you sometimes work in tandem with the state police on certain types of investigations?
We do.
And so when Trooper Lawler arrived at the hospital, did you turn over these items to him?
I did.
Now, in the time that you were at the South Shore Hospital, did you have the opportunity to speak at all with Lindsay Clancy?
No.
In the time that you observed her, was she responsive at all?
No.
Was she in custody at that point?
I would say yes.
Well, let me ask you this. As far as when a person is placed in custody, you usually advise them that they are, correct?
Correct.
I don't hear him saying that he's not sure. His answer was yes. So I understand what the government.
Sustained.
When your department has somebody in custody, is it protocol to have an officer stay with that individual?
Yes.
And in this case, was somebody assigned to stay with Lindsay Clancy?
Yes.
At the time you were at the hospital, was that your role?
Yes.
At some point, did someone else from your department come to keep watch?
Yes.
Who was that person?
I believe it was Officer Lepard. I know Officer Broderick was also assisting. I can't recall if he arrived at the hospital as well.
Okay, but you recall Officer Lepard?
Yes.
And once the scene was secured at South Shore Hospital, did you leave?
I did.
And where did you go?
Back to the address in Duxbury.
And that would be 47 Summer Street, correct? I think you might have said 42 at one point.
You're right. Yep. 47, sorry.
And at the residence at 47 Summer Street, did you assist other Duxbury officers in securing the scene upon the arrival of the crime scene services?
Yes.
Were you present when the Massachusetts State Police Detectives Unit executed a search warrant at 47 Summer Street?
I was.
And was that kind of later that night into the early morning hours of the 25th?
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Counsel?
Could I see the exhibits that were just introduced? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Morning.
Good morning.
I've got a couple of other photographs that I'd like to, just since you were at the hospital at South Shore, if I could.
Sure.
Is that what Lindsay's condition was when you went in the hospital and saw her?
I don't recall those being on her legs, but I'm not 100% sure. But other than that, yes.
Other than that, yes?
Correct.
So I would offer that, Your Honor, if I could.
Any objections?
May we approach?
Sure, yeah. All right, that may be admitted. Sure, yeah, if you want to do that.
You at some point had a chance to take a look at her face, I imagine, sir.
Correct.
Is that fair and accurate depiction?
Yes,
And she was unconscious at that point, was she not?
that's correct.
This June.
All right, that may be admitted.
And this, you said that there was some cuts on her wrist. That's a fair and accurate depiction.
Correct.
And cuts on the neck as well.
Correct.
And the other side, from the front.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. All right, those photos may be admitted.
Thank you. And I'm just showing you another exhibit. This would have already been introduced into evidence, and this would be Exhibit 112. And this would also depict the area of the wrist. Is that correct?
Correct.
The cut was. Likewise, Exhibit 111 also shows the cuts on the neck. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, when you went to the house, you were a detective at this point, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, you're working in tandem at this time with the state police. They were also investigating, right?
Correct.
But you were the detective for the town of Duxbury.
One of them, yes.
One of them, okay. And one of the things counsel had asked you about was the clothing that Lindsay was wearing, and it was cut off, right?
Correct.
So I'm just going to show you and ask if this appears to be a fair and accurate depiction, rendition of, for example, one of her items of clothing.
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know that, so I'm just going to make sure it's in, that's all. Does that show that there's blood on that item of clothing?
Not that I see.
Okay. Was there some type of residue of paint or something on the clothing, if you recall?
I don't recall, no.
No. Did you notice on the pants any blood on the jeans? Well, if you recall.
I don't recall, no.
How about the, I guess it would be the top that was worn? Did you notice any blood on that?
No.
Was there a bra that was cut off, if you recall?
Yes, there was.
And the blood seeped through the clothing into the bra itself? Is that correct?
Correct.
And that would be obviously from outside the clothing and then into the bra that was being worn, right?
Correct.
That would offer these, Judge?
Any objection?
They're already in evidence.
Yeah.
They've been marked, so I don't see this necessarily mark them again. They're the same photographs.
Well, I'll trust the representation there in evidence. I don't want to
All right.
upload the court. So if they're already in evidence, then that's good
I
enough for
just
me.
admitted them through Sergeant Murphy.
But the bottom line is that you do agree that there was certainly blood on the interior and exterior clothing that she was wearing, right?
That's correct.
You'd also agree, sir, that there was blood in the area from the outside of the backyard directly underneath the window. Is that correct? Do you agree with that if you remember looking at it?
That is correct.
This way. The ground, the snow, and the leaves that were underneath, of course, there were a lot of people walking around, but you could see the blood
Correct.
directly underneath the window, right?
The back window.
You notice blood that was on the window sill itself on the second floor, one mark on that window ledge.
Yes.
You also noted blood that at some point had gone onto the two shingles that were in the area underneath that ledge, underneath that window, right?
Correct.
Right off of the blood on the floor, on the ground with the EMT documents.
No objection.
All right, that may be admitted.
Exhibit 126.
Thank you. Now, the state police went and got a search warrant, right?
Correct.
And you were there when they were searching.
Correct.
You guys were helping out. Obviously, it was a group effort to search the house for relevant or material evidence, right?
Correct.
Now, one of the things that was seized were pill bottles. Is that right?
Correct.
You know why they were seized?
I do not.
Did you seize any pill bottles?
I do not.
Were you there when the state police seized the pill bottles?
I was.
Do you recall that the pill bottles were seized from, for example, in the kitchen? You opened up a cabinet and they were right on, a bunch of them lined up on a shelf.
I can't attest to that. I wasn't
Okay.
present for that.
Why don't I ask you this? Where did they get the pill bottles from?
You'd have to ask them. I wasn't there when they seized the bottles.
You weren't there. When
I
they
wasn't
seized.
in that room. We were in
Okay.
multiple rooms at a time.
So I may stand corrected. I'm sorry. If I thought I asked you if you were there when the state police was seizing the bottles, and I thought you said you were.
I was in the house, correct.
In the house, but
Yes.
you weren't there when they were seizing anything.
Correct.
How about up in the bedroom? Did you go up in the bedroom?
I did.
Did you observe the blood on the floor?
I did.
You observed when you went in the bedroom, it was very cold, right?
Yes,
Obviously, because the window was open, right?
correct.
And when you went into the bedroom, you made observations as a detective of certain items, such as, does this appear to be a fair, accurate rendition of the floor, blood drops on the floor?
It does.
In the bedroom?
Yes,
Is this a indication of the bed itself, the right side of the bed, additional blood that was located on the floor next to the boots?
yes,
Does this appear to be the nightstand that was next to the bed?
it does.
And do you see what's on top of the nightstand?
Yes.
What's on top of the nightstand?
There's 2 cups, a knife, looks like a jar or something, and maybe a clock.
Okay. Also blood drops?
Correct.
This is a additional photograph moving farther down towards the right side of the bed.
Correct.
This is a close-up of the knife that was on the nightstand, as well as the little cup that was there, and something that says deep sleep pillow spray. You see that?
Yep.
And that was on that top of the furniture, correct?
Correct.
And this again is an area depicting various items of clothing. It looks like a little headband, a wire, perhaps to charge a phone, and blood on the floor.
Correct.
And this shows the location of the bed. Additional photograph of the blood towards the end of the bed, and also the area of the window, right?
Correct.
What off of these, Judge?
No, back to that photograph.
Can I see counsel in regards? permissible. That may be admitted.
Just for continuity, this also show a different angle, but basically the boots that I already showed you and the blood showing that the blood kind of follows through along the edge of the bed, the furniture, and then up to the wall.
Correct.
Was there also, like, if you recall, one of those full-length mirrors?
I don't recall.
No. I don't.
All right, any objection on that? All right, those pictures may be admitted.
So you had nothing to do?
Hold on a second, counsel. Just gonna mark these.
Great. 127 through 135.
So you had nothing to do with the seizure of any of the pill bottles, sir?
Correct.
And you don't have a memory of looking in the cabinet in the kitchen and seeing a number of journals or spiral-bound notebooks and books?
Correct.
Was that pretty much the extent of your involvement with this case that night?
That night, yes.
And you really didn't get involved with any further investigation on this matter as far as seizing evidence, except for what you testified to, right?
We did seize, I located a laptop in the hallway closet,
Okay,
and that was, I believe, seized by the state police as well.
okay. Anything else you recall? How about, do you remember when you guys were searching or you watched the state police searching, that they opened up, did they open up drawer to the nightstand that was next to the bed with a number of pill bottles in it?
Again, I wasn't present when that was taken, so I can't attest to that.
How about Apple Watch? No?
I don't recall.
Attorney Buckingham, you redirect?
Just briefly.
Sure.
Sir, when you were at the hospital with Lindsay Clancy, with the defendant, were the medical staff in the emergency department actively treating the wounds to her neck and her wrists?
No, they were not.
And when you came back to the home at 47 Summer Street to secure the scene and wait for crime scene services, nobody went into the house that didn't need to be there before crime scene services, correct?
Correct.
In your experience, is that normal?
Yes.
And so were you present when any of the photographs that were shown to you by defense counsel were taken?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So your testimony today about those photos is your best memory of what the scene looked like at that
That's
time?
correct. Yes.
And as far as your role in the search warrant execution, fair to say there were quite a number of state police, Duxbury officers, as well as crime scene troopers on scene in the house during that. And each person, did they have their own kind of role in what they were doing?
Correct.
And did you kind of stay to your area?
Yes.
And you indicated that you only found a laptop in the first floor closet, correct?
Correct.
And so any of the other manners in which the rooms were searched, you were not a part of?
Correct.
Thank you, nothing further.
You didn't have to stay to your area as a detective in the Duxbury Police Department, did you?
Correct.
So you were able to go and assist with the search and go into the different rooms and look for potential evidence, right?
That's correct.
And do you remember approximately how many Duxbury police officers were in or about the house, either outside, on the porch, on the deck, in the house, downstairs, upstairs?
I don't.
Would it be more than 10?
No, I wouldn't say more than 10.
How about state police? You remember how many there were of them?
No.
So all told, when you consider that, the sheriff's department wasn't there too, were they, if you recall?
No,
Okay,
they were
sometimes
not.
they send them to take pictures.
No.
I don't know if they, okay. Would you agree that there were probably more than 10 officers from state police and Duxbury police that would be doing this investigation?
Correct.
All right. A number of police cruisers, and then you have perhaps, just asking, the yellow tape,
Yes.
crime scene, don't pass it and all that.
Correct.
Now, if I was, for example, to show up and pull up in my car and get out, and they're not gonna let me wander in the house and look around, are they?
Correct.
I mean, that's just for law enforcement officers only until they clear the scene.
Correct.
That's after they execute their search warrants and find whatever evidence is relevant, in their opinion.
Correct.
That they seize, right?
Yes.
Once the scene is clear, then people are able to go back into the home, right?
Right.
And you don't know, I would imagine, when they cleared the scene.
Correct.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Anything on that?
Nothing.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your
Step
Honor.
down. Thank you. Attorney Buckingham.
Oh, Richard Lepard.
All right, good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, sir.
All right. Attorney Buckingham, please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please tell the jurors your first and last name?
Richard Lepard,
And can you spell your last name for the record?
Lippard.
And how are you employed?
I work for the Duxbury Police Department.
And how long have you been a police officer?
6.5 years,
Have you worked for Duxbury the entire time, or did you work someplace else?
the entire time.
What's your current assignment at the Duxbury Police?
Patrolman.
Back in January of 2023, were you also on patrol then?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you working the day of January 24th, 2023?
Yes.
At some point while you were on shift that day, were you asked to assist in an ongoing investigation for an incident that occurred at 47 Summer Street in Duxbury?
Yes. I was called back in.
You were called back in?
Yep.
Had you finished your shift?
Yes, ma'am.
And so where were you asked to go?
To the police department.
When you came to the police department, where did they direct you to go as far as the investigation went?
South Shore Hospital in Weymouth.
And so when you arrived at South Shore Hospital, was there already another Duxbury officer there?
Detective Mafia was there.
Okay. And what was the purpose of you going to South Shore Hospital?
To overwatch the person in custody.
Okay. And did you learn who that person was?
Yes.
And fair to say that individual was a woman by the name of Lindsay Clancy, correct?
Yes.
What were your observations of her when you were at South Shore Hospital?
She seemed to be sedated, not speaking or anything on the hospital bed, just laying there.
And excuse me, when you were there or during the time that you were there, did you ever have any conversation with her?
No.
Did she remain unresponsive during the time that you were there?
Yes.
And were you also there when somebody came in and took some photographs of her?
I do not recall.
Were medical staff tending to her during the time that you were with her?
Yes.
Where in the South Shore Hospital was this? The emergency department or someplace else?
Emergency department.
And shortly after you were there observing her, did she or did the doctors indicate she was going to be transported someplace else?
Yes.
Where was she going to go?
That she was going to be med flighted to the Brigham in Boston.
And other than yourself or other law enforcement and medical staff, did anyone speak with her at the South Shore Hospital?
No.
And when she was transported to the hospital in Boston, did you go along with the transport?
Yes.
Do you remember how she was transported?
It was a med flight helicopter.
So you rode in the helicopter with her?
Yes.
And when you arrived at the Brigham in Boston, where did she go there?
She went to the emergency room.
Did you remain with her during that time period?
Correct.
And was there anyone else with you at the Brigham with her?
Officer Broderick.
And so the two of you were, what was your role?
Just to overwatch and stay with her.
At any point when you were with her at the Brigham, did she ever, was she ever awake or responsive?
No, not to my knowledge.
And how long were you at the Brigham with her?
About 15 to 16 hours.
Okay, so fair to say it was over the course of that night into the next morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Over the course of the night into the next morning, do you observe her medical status change?
There was some type of medical code during the nighttime. I'm not sure what it was.
Okay, but you were present in the room when that happened?
Yes, we were outside the room.
Outside?
Yeah.
And the next morning, when your shift concluded, did somebody else from the Duxbury Police Department come and relieve you?
Yes.
During the time that you were there, did anyone besides medical staff or the law enforcement officers that you were with interact with the defendant?
No.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Reddington.
Morning.
Morning.
Afternoon. So, young man working for the town of Duxbury, and you were detailed to the home initially, correct?
No, sir.
You didn't go to the house at all?
No, sir.
Okay, you went directly to South Shore.
Correct.
And when you were at South Shore, your purpose was to, as you say, overwatch. Well, that basically is she was in custody at that point, right?
Correct.
So one of your obligations is to, I guess, guard the unconscious person and make sure what to do what, just to stand there?
Correct.
Okay. And you did in the South Shore Hospital, right?
Yes, sir.
And you made your observations of her, bandaged or whatever, laying in the bed, and she was not conscious, correct?
Correct.
And at some point, the decision was made medically that they were going to have her med flighted to the Boston Hospital, Brigham and Women's, right?
Correct.
And that was by way of the helicopter.
Yes, sir.
You had a helicopter ride into Boston with her, right?
Yes, sir.
You were overwatching her in the helicopter again, right?
Yes, sir.
She still had not gained consciousness at all.
Correct.
She wasn't talking to you or medical staff or anybody, right?
Correct.
She was already had the tubes and stuff in her mouth coming out, and she was bandaged up and wrapped up and basically laying down in the gurney in the helicopter, right?
Yes, sir.
So when she gets to Brigham and Women's Hospital, they bring her into the emergency room, right?
Yes.
And that room was loaded with equipment, boxes, wires, tubes, buzzing beeps, lights, things of that nature, right?
Yes.
Life-saving equipment that was in there, right?
Yes.
Very small room, wasn't it?
Yes.
Kind of hard to maneuver.
There was enough space for the medical staff to maneuver.
All right. And how many police officers were overwatching the unconscious person while she was in the emergency room at Brigham and Women?
2.
That would be you and the other officer from Duxbury.
Yes, sir.
At what point did the state police officers arrive in the hospital?
I don't recall them coming to the hospital.
Did you ever see state police in the hospital?
Possibly at South Shore Hospital, but not in Boston.
So you're in Brigham and Women's off of the helicopter into the emergency room for a day, is that correct?
Correct. 16 hours.
Did you go back there again after that day?
To South Shore Hospital?
No, Brigham and Women's Hospital.
No.
So you're limited to the time that you were there as to you and your brother officer were there in the room with her, correct?
Yes.
And a number of nurses and doctors, right?
Yes.
Fair to say it was chaos. It was like bedlam in that room, wasn't it?
Yes, very busy.
And you don't remember any other police officers? How about internal police officers from Brigham and Women's Hospital? Do you recall them being there?
There may have been security, but I do not recall.
So is it your testimony that you do not recall any other police being in that room or outside the room when you were there?
Correct.
Now, at some point, police were detailed, if you know, to sit outside the room to guard the door. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what were you guarding against?
No, overall.
Anybody coming to visit?
Right, because nobody was allowed to visit, right?
Correct.
And then while you were there in the early morning hours, about 2:24 or something like that, there was, as you said to the jury, a code, right?
Yes.
And again, that kind of amped up the bedlam at that point, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
There were people running from all over, and you could hear on the microphone, code blue, with the room being identified, right?
Yes.
And that meant that she was dead or dying, right?
Yes.
She was chained to the hospital bed too, wasn't she?
I do not recall her being handcuffed.
You don't?
No, sir.
you recall when you left?
The Brigham, sir.
Yes.
The next morning around 10, from what I remember.
Okay. And you were relieved by who?
Officer Daly from the Duxbury Police Department and Officer Johnson from the Duxbury Police Department.
All right. So you've got 2 Duxbury police officers. And there, to your memory, were there any other law enforcement officers?
Not with them, no.
How about on their own? Did you observe other law enforcement officers come in that room or outside the room?
No, sir.
And then that was the end of your shift and you left.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Counsel, anything further?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You sit down. Thank you.
Commonwealth calls Dr. Mark Henowitz.
Just for the record, Your Honor, I'm just voting object to this, agree the circumstances. And
Do we want to go to sidebar?
Yeah, please. Would you? All right. Therese Sprague, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, good afternoon, Doctor.
Afternoon, sir.
If I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Mark Joseph Tenarowitz, MarkJoseph Tenerowicz.
And what is your date of birth, sir?
22869.
What do you do for a living?
I was an emergency physician. I'm currently not acting as an emergency physician.
What do you currently do?
I do disability review for the state of Rhode Island.
And so directing your attention back to January of 2023, were you an emergency room physician at that time?
Yes, I was.
And where did you work?
Beth Israel Deaconess Plymouth.
And could you briefly describe for the jurors your educational background and the training that you underwent to qualify to be an emergency room physician?
I did my undergraduate education at Trinity College. I did a one-year post-baccalaureate pre-medical program at Bryn Mawr College. I then got my medical degree from Brown University, and I did my residency in emergency medicine at UMass Memorial in Worcester.
And when you finished your education and training, did you work in emergency care after that point up until you changed positions?
I worked in emergency medicine from 1997 until May of 2025.
And directing your attention to January 24th, 2023, were you working in the evening hours that day?
I was.
And at some point in time, did you treat a child named Dawson Clancy?
Yes.
How did he arrive at the hospital?
He arrived by fire department ambulance.
And when he arrived, were you given a summary of his injuries by emergency personnel?
Yes.
What did you learn at that time?
I was told that he reportedly had been strangled and he was found without a pulse and not breathing.
And what observations did you make of Dawson yourself?
When he arrived, he had a breathing tube in. They had placed a device into the bone of his leg to give him intravenous fluids and medicines. CPR was in progress. He was not breathing on his own and he had no pulse and was not responding.
And did you observe any trauma to his body?
I believe there were some old appearing bruises on his legs. and there was some ruptured blood vessels on his face.
And did you observe anything in the area of his neck?
Not that I can recall.
And what did you do to treat Dawson?
We continued CPR. We continued to give him IV fluids. We gave him doses of adrenaline to try and restart his heart. We confirmed that the breathing tube was in the right position. We eventually gave medicines to treat the presumed acid buildup in his blood. We gave him calcium to make sure that his heart would, if it started again, would beat effectively. And that's what we did.
And how did you go about making sure that the breathing apparatus was in place properly?
Basically 4 ways. We detected carbon dioxide in the air coming out of his lungs, which usually just comes from the lungs. I listened and could hear breath sounds. I looked with a video laryngoscope to confirm that the tube was between the vocal cords going into the lungs, and we did an x-ray.
And when you say you were hearing breath sounds, was that him breathing on his own or something else breathing for him?
That it was someone breathing for him, squeezing the bag attached to the breathing tube.
Okay. And so that the breath sounds you heard just confirmed that whoever was squeezing the bag valve mask, the air from that was going into the lungs and then carbon dioxide was coming out?
He was not breathing spontaneously.
Okay. And are you, while all of this is happening, are you continuing to assess him and his condition?
Yes.
And what were your assessments?
So we would stop periodically every several minutes to very briefly check to see if he was breathing on his own or if he had a pulse. And he was not at any point. At one point, towards the end of the resuscitation, I used an ultrasound to determine if his heart was beating effectively, and there was no evidence of that.
Okay. And based on your training and experience, at some point in time, did you make a determination that your efforts weren't going to be successful?
I did, based on the time from when resuscitative efforts started in the field by the paramedics and the time that we put in, and the fact that despite the best resuscitative efforts we could, the fluids, the medicines, the CPR, breathing for him, it did not look like his heart would ever start again.
Approximately how long did you and your team work on Dawson?
I believe we worked on Dawson about 40 minutes in addition to what the paramedics had done previously.
At any point in time, did you try to use a defibrillator?
I did not.
And why is that?
He was unfortunately never in a heart rhythm that would have made defibrillation an effective treatment.
So your heart has to be in a certain condition for a defibrillator to even work?
Yes, there are 2 heart rhythms, basically equivalent of the heart, that if you use a defibrillator, you can restore a rhythm that makes the heart beat effectively. He was never in one of those rhythms.
And at some point in time, did you declare Dawson deceased?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall when that was?
I believe from my review of the records recently, it was at 1928.
In 1928, would that be 7:28 p.m.?
That's correct.
Thank you, doctor.
Mr. Reddington.
Good afternoon. You indicated that you observed what appeared to be older bruises to his legs, his lower
Yes.
legs, the like shin area? That area?
Yes.
And you also had an interosseous device, I think, is that what you said?
Yes, he did.
And that would require inserting a needle or something into the actual shin bone area?
Yes, into the tibia.
Thank you, sir. That's all I had.
All right. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
I'm also call Dr. Benjamin Kaufman.
Thank you, sir. You may take a seat.
All right, good afternoon, doctor.
Just for the record, Your Honor, I'd like to just note the same objection.
Same ruling.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
It's Benjamin Kaufman, BenjaminKaufman.
And your date of birth, sir?
September 10th, 1984.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an emergency medicine doctor.
How long have you been doing that?
About 12 years.
Could you briefly describe for the jurors your educational and training background that qualifies you for that role?
Yeah, I went to Boston University for medical school, and then Kings County for residency training, and then Columbia for fellowship in global emergency medicine.
And where do you currently work?
Beth Israel in Plymouth.
And back in January of 2023, did you work there?
I did.
And specifically on January 24th, 2023, were you working that evening?
I was.
And while you were working that evening, did you treat a patient named Callan Clancy?
Yes, that was my patient.
And do you recall how he arrived at the hospital?
Yes, with the EMS, with CPR ongoing.
And is it typical that when EMS arrive with a patient, they give you kind of a summary or a rundown of the patient's condition?
It is.
And did they give you that rundown on Callan's condition?
They did. He, at the time, his heart had stopped and CPR was ongoing, and he was not breathing. He was receiving breaths via bag valve mask ventilation.
And what did you do in terms of treating Callan?
So as soon as he came in, basically we put in a breathing tube, and we were able to get an IV established. The first thing that we do is give a dose of epinephrine. And in this case, you can look directly at the heart with an ultrasound, and his heart started beating after we were able to give that dose. At that point, we continued compressions, continued giving him breaths through the breathing tube. And Plymouth Hospital does not have pediatrics or the ability to care for that level of pediatric patients. So we're on the phone with Boston Children's Hospital, making preparations basically to get him to the more definitive care.
And about how long into your care of Callan did he regain a heartbeat?
Probably from the time that he got to the ER, maybe like 10 minutes or so, I'm guessing.
At any point in time, did he regain the ability to breathe on his own while he was in your care?
No.
Did you do any examination or testing to determine Callan's brain function?
So at no point did he exhibit any brain function. I'm not like a neurologist, so we are not the definitive person, but in emergency medicine, there's a scale called the Glasgow Coma Scale, which is generally from 3 to 15. There's different variations for pediatrics, but he scored the lowest, which basically is you're in a coma or have no brain response during the entire time that he was in my care.
So on that scale, the 3 to 15, 15, would that be someone who's walking and talking and acting normally?
That's correct.
And a 3, is that someone with no brain function?
That is correct.
And you testified that Callan was at a 3 when you treated him?
At no time during his care did he have any brain function that was evident on my exam.
And at some point in time, was it decided to transfer his care to Boston Children's Hospital?
Yes, we were in contact with him basically immediately, and then he was flown by helicopter to Boston Children's Hospital, and the whole time the ICU doctors were on the phone reviewing the case and making recommendations.
And at any point in time, to your knowledge, from the time he entered the emergency department at Beth Israel Deaconess Plymouth until he arrived at Boston Children's Hospital, was he able to breathe on his own?
No.
Thank you, doctor.
All right, counsel.
I have no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, doctor. Attorney Buckingham.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth would call Melissa Archidepane.
After the police officer, the testimony of the evidence you should
Watch your step, please. Hi, good afternoon. Attorney Buckingham, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you please tell the jurors your first and last name?
Melissa Acadapane,
Can you spell your last name for the record?
Arcadipane.
And did you work for South Shore Hospital?
Yes.
And what was your role at South Shore Hospital?
My last role was a supervisor of the specimen processing department in the laboratory.
And do you still work in that role?
No.
Back in 2023, specifically January, were you in that role?
Yes.
And how long had you worked for, or have you worked for South Shore Hospital over the course of the years?
Over 20 years.
You said that you were the specimen processing supervisor?
Correct.
What are the general responsibilities for that role?
Overseeing the department where all of the specimens from within the hospital and even outside of the hospital will come in through that department to be received, checked, make sure they have orders, make sure they're collected in the correct tube.
And the laboratory at South Shore Hospital is responsible for processing blood samples, urine samples that come from other areas of the hospital, correct?
Correct.
So can you just generally tell us how a blood or urine sample would come from the emergency department at South Shore Hospital to the laboratory?
So in most cases, blood sample or urine will come through a pneumatic tube system from the emergency room. They'll put it in a tube, hit a button, and it will come over to the lab, which was across the street. And we would take it out of that canister and process it at that point.
And the specimens that are collected in a place like the emergency department are done by a nurse or technician who takes the samples, puts them in the appropriate vial or tube and labels them, correct?
Correct.
And so when they come to you through that pneumatic system, what does your laboratory do with the samples?
Well, we check the sample, make sure it's labeled, make sure it's in the correct tube, and then we would process it.
And traditionally, would your laboratory receive several samples, meaning several vials of blood or urine from one patient?
They could, yes.
And as far as the orders for testing, you at the laboratory would only run particular tests that are ordered by a physician, correct?
Correct.
Does that usually consume the whole sample that you receive from the emergency department?
Not always, no.
And so would it be a common procedure that samples from a particular patient would be retained in case additional testing needed to be done?
Yes.
And working in the lab as the specimen processing supervisor, are you familiar with what is referred to as a preservation notice?
I am.
What do you know that to be?
So that is a notice that we would receive from a law enforcement agency asking us to hold specific samples for a particular patient.
And what would your laboratory do when you receive a preservation notice for a particular patient?
So the samples would be pulled aside, they would be put in a specimen bag. A copy of that preservation notice gets put in the bag with the samples, and it is put in a separate bin within the specimen refrigerator.
And the specimen refrigerator, is that a place that specimens are stored until they're either used or discarded?
Correct.
And does that preserve the specimen?
Meaning well, they need to be refrigerated. So, but we separate those specimens that potentially could be needed elsewhere into a separate spot so that they don't get discarded.
Now, were you aware that a preservation notice had been served on South Shore Hospital for the blood and urine of Lindsay Clancy on January 24th, 2023?
I was.
And were those samples of blood and urine collected in the same manner you just described and put in a separate bin?
Yes.
And on January 31st, 2023, did you have the opportunity to interact with a trooper from the Massachusetts State Police?
I did.
And what was that interaction? Can you describe it to us?
He came with a warrant to collect the specimens.
And so did you collect the specimens that were labeled for Lindsay Clancy?
I did. Somebody had already put them in that bin in a bag, so I just went to the bin, retrieved them, made sure they were hers, and gave them to the officer.
And in fact, you handed over 6 vials of blood and 1 vial of urine to the trooper on that day, correct?
I don't remember the exact samples or sample type that I handed over, but I do know that I gave him samples.
Okay, and as far as your memory, you recall that you double checked the ID label on the items to make sure that they belong to Lindsay Clancy, correct?
Definitely.
Nothing further, thank you.
Counsel?
No questions, thank you.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, the Commonwealth would move to submit the certified medical records from Beth Israel Deaconess in Plymouth for Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and Callan Clancy in one binder.
No objection.
All right, they may be admitted.
We could approach sidebar.
Yes. In terms of the jury, in talking to counsel, we are going to break for today. All right. What I was talking about over here is in regards to the schedule where we are. We are, if not on schedule, at a schedule. All right. And much of it is because of the work when you're not here, counsel is going over some of the exhibits and some of that. And that's part of some of these breaks, at least for you. All right, so I just kind of want to let you know that's what's going on. So I'm gonna excuse you. I know it's been a long week anyway. So we're gonna take a break till Monday. All right. And on Monday, the schedule anticipation will start about 9, maybe a little bit later than that. But I ask you to be here ready to go at 9. There's some matters I may have to talk to counsel, so it might give a little bit late start for you on Monday. And then the anticipations will go most of the day. All right. Like I said, we are well on schedule, if not ahead. What I want to remind you now, which you know I'm going to remind you, that you're going to be not here for a couple of days. It's very important. You've heard some of the evidence. You haven't heard all of the evidence. All right. You haven't heard the law that you will apply to this. So you have to keep an open mind. And the best way to do that is don't talk about this with anyone. Don't do any research. Don't watch anything. If something comes on, turn it off. And just like I said, if you're talking to somebody, brings up, blame me. All right. The judge said, I am not to talk about it. I'm not to listen to anybody talking about this and shut them down right away. I appreciate all the work that you've put in here so far. I look forward to seeing you on Monday. I hope you have a nice weekend, and we'll see you then. All right, thank you.
Court, all rise. Good. close your notebooks, please place them on the chairs. All right.
Here's the rest of the quorum. This court's in session. Please be seated.
All right. Anything else we need to address before Monday morning? Counsel?
No, thank you.
All right. So we'll be in recess on this matter until Monday morning at 9 o'clock. We'll resume the trial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Court, all rise.
Court's in recess. Please exit the court. Thank you.